Guys, welcome back. I've got Jason Khalipa with me today, and I'm really excited to talk to him about a number of different business components of fitness. But I have to first give a quick story.
Oh
Um,
boy.
yeah, Jason, one of the things that I often refer to you as when I talk to gym owners is he's the guy who has more handshakes than anybody else in the room, even though he already is known by everybody. And so I'm saying that as a big compliment because I noticed this at the last Iron and Mortar conference is that you put in the hustle time in order to create relationships with everybody that you're around, which pays massive dividends, which is something I just don't see with that many people in the industry. So I appreciate seeing that from you firsthand. And thanks for coming on today, man. It's always a good time to talk with you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that. Maybe that mentality kind of came from competing. I always felt like this is back. Um, I show up to these events and people want to take pictures and whatever. And, when you're at the CrossFit Games, we're talking 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, the year. I mean, those places, you're talking a lot of people who really wanted to talk to you, whether it's from open announcements to regionals to sanctionals to the games. I'd always tell myself before every single event, right, that the reason why I'm able to do what I'm doing is because of the spectators. And it only takes me a second to make that person's day, but I could also ruin their day by being a jerk, and I always tell myself that I would never, ever say no to a picture, a handshake, whatever, because it was just the right thing to do. And taking that same mentality into business and into meeting people, no one owes me anything. I never assume anything. So if I walk into a room, I'm not going to assume anybody knows me. I'm going to walk up to them, introduce myself, and you never know where that's going to go. And I think that mentality has served me well, where no one owes me anything, and I need to be the one who engages in that conversation.
Where do you think that came from? Is that something that's just been instilled in you, or did you pick it up somewhere?
It probably came from sales. When I
Mm.
was 16, 17, 18 years old, graduating from high school, going to college, I started a sales job at a traditional gym. And you sit across the table from someone and they didn't know you from Adam, right? And they'd walk in, you say, "Hi, my name's Jason. Welcome to the club." And you would sit, you'd listen, you'd explain, you'd share. And I think learning those interpersonal skills at a really young age, um, it was probably the most beneficial thing for me in my life at the time. Probably more so than school ever was, because I learned how to interact with different sexes, different races, different religions, and everybody wanted to get fit. So whether it doesn't matter ethnic background, or it was really cool to connect with people on that level.
When you think about taking that, going through school, getting into different types of fitness businesses, where did this kind of resonate the most? Was it still in sales? Was it in the coaching side? Was it in the athlete side? Like, was it just kind of umbrella through all of it?
It's a good question. I am first and foremost like a coach. I love to coach. I love to engage. I love to make people have the best hour of their day. But I also love running business. I love being entrepreneurial. I love thinking about the next phase. Where do we go? How do we innovate? How do we provide a better product for our members? And so I'd say that, um, I'm probably more entrepreneurial than I am. Like, if you're thinking about like, what are you uniquely good at? I'm probably more uniquely good in the area of entrepreneurship than I am uniquely good at coaching. But I think that I have a background in both that serve me really well. Whereas most coaches don't have a background in sales and in entrepreneurship and business, I at least had that background. And then I also have the coaching background. So I'm forever grateful for a bunch of mentors that I had, who really, kind of showed me the ropes of the business side before I got into the coaching side.
Do you think that, let's call him today's coach, do you think that today's coach bridges that gap between coaching and entrepreneurship, or coaching and interpersonal skills well?
No, I think it's a major issue for our industry because, there's a reason why there's really great chefs and there's also like the general manager of the restaurant. And the general manager in the front of the restaurant is making sure everybody's having a good time, engaged with the right people. And the person in the back is making the food and doing a great job there, but they're probably not the same person.
Hmm.
And I think in our industry, we've tried to kind of bridge the gap too much. Not even too much. It's just I think we've tried to put a square peg in a round hole both ways. Meaning, I think we've tried to take coaches and make them managers and owners, which I've had mistakes of doing. And we've also taken, guys who are really good business minded who then shift more into coaching. And I actually think you're doing both people a disservice because they're not uniquely good at that craft. And it's frankly, they think they want to do it, but they don't want to do it. I can't tell you how many coaches tell me they want to own or tell me they want to whatever, but when they really think about it, they really don't.
Yeah, I've had that conversation countless numbers of time when you start to say, well, what do you think it entails to own a business? Like, let's walk through the day in the life of a business owner. And they just sit there going, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. So many of them, not all of them, but so many of them seek the fame and the fortune, right, of being the owner that they see on TV. But that makes me think a lot about the business model itself. And I know, like, when I owned CrossFit gyms, for example, the economics certainly made sense once I was big enough. But particularly in the beginning, it didn't make sense to have a GM or, people working a bunch of different parts of it. So how do you reconcile the model versus the resources within the model? Is that typically financial for you guys, or is that kind of like a work in progress?
That's a really great question. I mean, I think that most people, when they're opening, especially nowadays, they need to recognize where their strengths, where their weaknesses, and how they're going to create a team to help support them. Being owner operated is tough. And if you're an owner operator and you're coaching 6-7 hours a day, who's out there running the business, supporting it, creating the vision, setting the expectations. And I think it's hard to do everything. And I think that back in the day, there was a lot more of that. Like when I opened the gym, I was the owner operator. And, I was coaching 6-7 hours a day, but I was also going to Starbucks, handing out flyers and answering the phones and emails. And looking back at it, that was a lot. And I probably didn't give the best customer service ever I could because I wouldn't get back to people who called because I'd be coaching. Mm-hmm. And I think that we've evolved as an industry now. And so you can't really do that anymore. You can't get away with as much slop as you did in 08, 09, 10. Now the industry's evolved, and I think we all need to become more professional in our approach. And if COVID has taught us anything, it's that if you had a business that was very strong, good community, good revenue, good cash flow, good P&L, good, all the real stuff, right? The real business. You're probably going to come out of this and be okay if you're prepared to pivot a little bit. But for those businesses that were already on the ropes, I think you're going to see a lot of those guys maybe not return.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's if you had 14 days of cash in your bank account for when you had to shut down, that's not just COVID's fault. And I can understand how somebody can get there, but that's something that we've got to help the industry evolve past, I think. Okay, so tell me a little bit. Obviously, I have a pretty good idea, but talk to me about NC Fit and
sure.
What is the totality of NC Fit?
Sure. So NC Fit, obviously, we're a fitness organization. We have 3 main verticals on how we generate revenue. We have open to the public locations. We currently own we currently have 5 of those. Now, we've had more in the past at one point, but we've consolidated. We've recognized where we need to be as an organization. We currently have 5. Then we have corporate wellness locations, which we've had a big shift there. We have 14 locations there. Our major clients and partners are Lucasfilms and Western Digital. Those are really big partners of ours, where we run the corporate fitness center for them, for Western Digital globally and for Lucasfilms in San Francisco. We've had to consolidate some other smaller partnerships, which I could talk about, that I've learned a lot through the process on recognizing where your energy goes, things grow, and how we had to kind of streamline our approach. And then the third revenue stream is digital. And with digital, we had really focused on B2B for a very long time, meaning business to business, where we took an app that we used for our coaches all over the world. And at the time, we probably had 100 coaches. This was a couple of years ago. We said, man, how do we make sure everybody's singing to the same sheet of music and not having some, John over here and then John over, we want to get people within a certain margin of error, similar to Starbucks does, right? If you get a latte in China, it's going to be very similar to California. You might have a better or worse barista, but it's within a certain, standard deviation. So we created an app with session plan, daily videos, all kinds of stuff for our team. Then we realized, man, we should sell this to other gyms. So now we have quite a few gyms that utilize our session plans, our programming. And we have 3 main programs on there right now. NC Metcon, which is our more traditional CrossFit, NCX, which is strength conditioning, and then NC Go, which is just dumbbell related for at home. Now that new at home product, we have doubled down on a B2C product, and now we have end consumer also using our app. So we have a $40 price point for end user, and then we also have a more expensive product for gym owners.
Gotcha. And
I hope that kind of gave.
Totally. Yeah, no, I think that makes complete sense. In the digital side of things, particularly the end consumer, have you seen that fundamentally shift since the start of COVID?
Yeah. So for a while, we knew the end consumer was an important market. There's millions and millions and millions of people, and there's, maybe 20,000 boutique fitness owners. And so there's a much larger demographic, of course, but it felt unauthentic to go out there and preach a message of at-home user when we were a brick and mortar gym. And so I was personally conflicted because I didn't want to send mixed messaging. And we had just signed a deal with a big box gym that we were expanding with them. We were opening a new location in Southern California, and we were doing a lot of stuff brick and mortar focused. But because of this, it was a really great opportunity for us to take what we've learned over the last decade in the gym and now take it to people at their houses. And so we've pivoted big time using a technology platform we already had. But now we have follow along workouts. I mean, we're quadrupling down on it.
Gotcha. Which I think a lot of people in this moment are trying to quadruple down. Tell me principally, Jason, why you think the quadruple down is the right play.
For us, it's the right play.
Right. I agree with you.
No, I'm just saying for John with his, 100 members, brick and mortar, personally guaranteed lease for the next 5 years, it might not be the right play. Meaning for us, given our audience, given our community size, given all the different things that we have going for us, we have whatever, in the platforms we already have developed and the team we already have on the digital side for the business to business, it just made sense for us. But I mean, if you think about the amount of people that we have 6 coaches now who are coming in on a daily basis to create content. We have a full-time videographer. We have a full-time photographer. We have a full-time, graphic designer, 2 of them. We have, a web developer. We have an app team. We had all these things in place. So it made sense for us to then take this full focus we had on B2B and just shift a little bit to B2C while still focusing on B2B. But if you're a traditional gym owner, one of the challenges you're going to run into is that the Zoom calls and the Facebook Lives, there's going to be an issue over time. Yep. And so for us, we utilize our app and our password protected website. We use private Facebook group and we do lives every day, but those are like community builders. Mm-hmm. Those aren't the meat and potatoes because we can't control sometimes the internet, the audio, the this or that. So I think those gym owners that are shifting hard to digital, they need to be careful not to be 1 foot in, 1 foot out, where if they go too far over this side, they haven't become an expert in this field yet. There's tons of other people that have been playing in that space for a very long time. And so, they got to be careful, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, which I think is such a profound point. A lot of the conversations I'm having with people right now, one, I think your model makes complete sense because you already had a built out, proven platform. Adding an additional piece to a built out platform costs a lot less resources in terms of total investment, versus the rest. Whereas somebody trying to go online for the first time, they don't know how it works and they have no idea what it's going to cost.
Exactly.
Makes complete sense. Similarly, what so many people aren't thinking about is that they have no competitive advantage online, none. And the second that they try to do group class online, they compete with you and Peloton. And it's like, you can call it what you want, but if I can provide a better service than you, i.e. I have better technology, better content, better media, better influence, whatever, I take all of your clients overnight. And so I think that one of the things that people need to think about, which is I want to kind of shift into the model conversation, is people, I think, who own gyms need to have a local footprint because that will be a competitive advantage because let's call it NC Fit Digital, isn't trying to meet people face to face on a daily basis. You know, that's something where that's not part of your business model. A brick and mortar gym is part of their business model, which you could build some advantage around. When you think about what COVID has done and what it might continue to do for the next year and a half or so, what does that make you see in the fitness industry as a whole? What do you think is coming down the pipe for the industry?
Well, I think the first step is, I think you'd probably agree with me on this. If you're a mediocre coach, you're probably your business will probably suffer a lot. Meaning, if people were coming in your gym and you were just a guy starting the clock saying 3, 2, 1, go, right? And you were getting away with it, you know, maybe people just kind of liked it, but you know, you couldn't really coach effectively. It's probably gonna be being a digital coach is much different than being in person. In person, get away with a little bit of fluff and this and that, and you know, whatever. So I think the people who are crappy coaches are going to be exposed. People who are good coaches will you know, also be exposed. And I think that the future is just more people are going to be more. I think they're going to take a deep evaluation of their business and think about multiple layers of revenue instead of just the one that they were originally looking at. But I caution owners, including myself, that before you go down these paths of looking for additional revenue streams, start recognizing what are you an expert in, what do you not know about, and how do you maybe understand that model better. For example, the OPEX model is not our model. So if I wanted to go down your style of model, I would go talk to you guys, start understanding it, because you have years and years and years of experience there. For example, brick and mortar, group style training. We've been doing that for well over a decade. We've also had an online platform, but we are now trying to compete and create a model similar to Peloton. And we've had a learning curve. It's taken us months. And, you know, I guess what I'm trying to say is that's with our whole team and everything, it's taken us months and months and months of trial and error. And what I'm concerned about is that an owner just thinks, oh, I need to go digital, I'm going to shift over here. But they don't have the expertise, nor the brand, nor the this. And so I caution them to start slow, learn from other people, and develop a plan that's going to be successful for them. And maybe these hybrid models are going to come out where, you know, you're going to have, you know, a limited membership for in the gym where you're going to cap class at 10, but you're still going to provide online training tools for your members. And there's going to be some type of community build there.
Yeah, it's so interesting where, I mean, just think about the resources that you laid out for your digital platform, graphic designers and videographers and content creators. Imagine what Peloton has at their disposal at this point. Certainly somebody can use Zoom because there's no barrier of entry to using Zoom anymore. But imagine the investment in an infrastructure setup that people are going to have to actually compete in a global setting.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that a lot of gym owners, they won't even realize it, but they'll just be serving the people who are in their local community because they can't go out globally because they don't know how to market and they don't.
And that's okay. The thing about it is a lot of gym owners have used Zoom or Facebook Live as a bridge. And that in itself is beautiful, right? You have this revenue stream, you want to bridge the gap, go for it. And if you're reopening, that's fine. But every month that goes by, if you're charging your members a premium and they're not receiving a premium service, eventually going to pull back from that. Now, if you reopen and you're all good, that's fine. But, you know, for us in California, what we did, we put every member on hold. And then we gave them 3 options. Option A, keep your membership, you know, reinstate your membership. And we will credit you back that membership once we reopen. Meaning, if you stick with us for 2-3 months, we will then credit you back those 2-3 months over the next 2-3 months, right? Like, so give us this cash flow now, we'll reciprocate it. We'll also do an equipment loan, and you get our online service. Number 2, you just use our digital platform. So it's $40 a month. You get all these amazing tools, nutrition, this, that. Option 3, you do virtual personal training. Or obviously, I guess option 4 is just keep your membership on hold. And that was a little bit more of a customer focused approach. I don't know if what we did was right. What we could have done was we could have done it the other way, where they had to tell us to cancel or hold, but we did it the opposite. Time will only tell if that was the right move.
Yep, and I've heard good and bad on both sides of that conversation, where some people got crushed by trying to do it that way. I've also heard that other people were highly respected for it in their client state. So I think your earlier point about the relationship that you have built with your people up front is probably going to be highly determined, or it will highly determine what they respond back with.
Yeah. And just to lay a framework on this, I think gyms like our size have had the toughest time with this. And I'm not, obviously I'm partial, but like, you know, the Orange Theories, the Berries, the F45s, they're having a tough time too, because their model was, you know, support as many people as you can in a smaller space. And our model was, you know, grow our membership. And so our gyms didn't have 100 or 200 or 300 members. They had more than that. And so as the community grows, you don't have like this, you know, it's not like, oh, I'm paying $100 for John to live off of. Now it's like, no, I'm paying NC Fit, which is an organization. And so you lose a little bit of that personal connection the bigger you get. Mm-hmm. And so I think for our business, it was really tough because we weren't small enough to look like, oh, if I pay this $100, it's going to go pay Jason's, you know, cell phone bill. And we weren't big enough where, you know, we're kind of like right in this middle ground. And so I think that was tough for us, which we had to shift from. But the other big shift is, and I think you and I were talking about this earlier, is I'm really curious what's going to happen with the Orange Theories and the F45s in particular, because those models were so built on, you know, our model was built on one member per every 100 square feet. A lot of these ones are built on one model per every, you know, 25 square feet. And so what's going to happen in the future? And are they even going to reopen? Because if their model is $200 a month, service this many people, this many hours, well, if you can only accommodate half, is it even worth opening?
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting too, you know, Gold's Gym Files chapter 11 last week, trying to reopen. That's a very different model than Orange Theory. If you go to an Orange Theory model, now you're saying, well, if there's X thousand number of Orange Theories out there, how much revenue is lost for Orange Theory at the headquarter level? If they drop a lot of revenue, are they able to service the gyms the way that they were once servicing the gyms? Does it become almost a spiraling effect where if growth stops, does the whole thing just come apart? Now, I'm not trying to be negative.
Yeah.
You know, but I think that I'm sure that they're thinking about that, because that model has to go exponential essentially to support the amount of revenue needed at the HQ level. F45, I don't know them personally, but the way that they were growing, I could see them having a serious problem if gyms don't reopen quickly or choose not to reopen, because they were growing so fast. Now they got a ton of investment dollars. But
yeah, do you see the pivot they made though? So to your point, I'm in agreement, full agreement with you. They pivoted hard to the, they created like this, do you see like that at-home thing that they created?
Yeah,
I'm curious to see how well that does. I mean, the people who are perfectly positioned for this obviously was Peloton. And the reason why Peloton's so successful is because high quality, engaging, good music, good product. You can't say enough good things about Peloton. If you like cycling, if you like, you know, I think they have some other products that are good, but their cycling and treadmill work is excellent. And so we're saying to ourselves, well, hey, if we, you know, people are obviously bought into this. They like the instructor, they like the music. How do we have multiple camera angles, high quality, pre-recorded, follow along content is really where we're shifting towards.
Mm-hmm. And then I agree with you. I think Peloton also has, through some of their own doing, through some timing and through some luck, their brand is just simply superior to the rest of the, you know, the rest of the online space.
Yeah.
You know, I see, what's funny is I see Nordic Track doing what I consider Peloton commercials. You know what I mean? Where it's like, for me to even say that is unbelievable.
No, you're right. You're right. You're 100% right. They did a great job with that.
Yeah. So I think if Peloton at that scale, all of my friends are basically saying it's all about the unit economics of what the retention looks like. Now, Peloton just announced earnings last week with better retention than what people thought, which is why the stock popped. But it's going to be fascinating to see, okay, well, it's like when Equinox's Amazon Prime model opens and Nordic Track's Amazon Prime model opens and and they all open up, just like the streaming wars right now, then who ultimately takes possession of it, which what I'm really intrigued by is what Apple's coming out with and what Amazon's coming out with, because they're both coming out with health products. So it's like, that's going to be a fascinating change in the market, I think.
I mean, one piece that makes their business pretty sticky though is the bike purchase, right?
Yep.
Now you could do their app, right? But their bike is exceptional. And, you know, and that's a really interesting piece that we considered. Should we have made a proprietary piece of equipment similar to a dumbbell And what we've chosen as a business right now is to stay focused on really good dumbbell workouts and make them as accessible as possible. But over time, I mean, man, you talk about retention. I mean, imagine if you went out and you spent $1,000 on a whole set that was proprietary towards this product that you were using. I think it's a really interesting model.
It's interesting too. I go back and forth on it because I was having a good conversation. My cousin is at Nike, and he's always looking at the arena really well. And he said that he bought Peloton, and he didn't even think about it in retention terms. He thought about it almost in a payment plan terms. So he buys the bike, and the bike's payment plan was over 3 years. So my question is what happens after the 3 years are up? So it's like, retention doesn't even start until 3 years in for Peloton, which is beautiful, right? Because they have 3 years to develop brand loyalty and stickiness, etc. It's going to be fascinating. I'm really curious to see how their non-bike, non-treadmill products retain. If those retain, then you'll know Peloton's for real. If they can't retain, then what's probably happening is that people are buying the equipment and not actually taking enough classes. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. And that can be clouded in 1,000 different ways, but it's going to be fun to watch, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And for those owners who aren't watching, aren't observing, I got an email from SoulCycle about what their plan is moving forward. I mean, there's, in our industry, whether you're, boutique, CrossFit, semi-private training, private training, whatever, our industry is very big, very vast, but you need to be aware of what's going on. What's happening in the big box gyms? What's happening in the boutique space? And I think at times, especially in CrossFit, we were so focused on CrossFit, that sometimes you have blinders onto the rest of the industry when there's a lot of people doing very successful things. If we just open up our eyes and become more aware of it, and then take what we like and develop it, and take what we don't like and get rid of it.
Yeah, I think that's so well said. That's one of the things I really appreciate you, man, is you look at something and you go, how am I going to do this in a great way? You just look at everything as an opportunity, which I think is it's a refreshing way of looking at this industry. So I appreciate that about you.
Yeah, thank you.
Let me ask you this. When you look at your 5 brick and mortar gyms, how are you, so you're supporting them online, like you said, and you did the piece about their memberships. When you come back, how are you going to, let's call it, redefine what this thing called group training is, or is it going to be exactly the same as before?
Yeah, it's a very heavy and loaded question in the sense that the government does play a factor here. And this is where it becomes kind of tough, right? Is that most of those locations are here in the Bay Area, Santa Clara County, which is, predominantly, a more liberal based. I think we're going to go out further than most people. I'm not saying that's bad or good. I'm just saying that's just the fact of where we live. And I also think they're going to mandate more specific things in other states. I don't think in California it's going to be like, oh yeah, on this date, you just need to have 10 or less people. It's going to be like, no, you need this cleaning supplies, this humidifier, or not humidifier, like this, all these different things. And so I think that our move forward, I hate to say we're in a holding pattern. We're debating concepts, but we're in a little bit of a holding pattern until we get more clarity on what exactly the confinements are, because I don't believe at NC Fit, if we are required to have coaches wear a mask and gloves and all athletes wear masks, if that was a requirement, I do not believe we would open. Mm-hmm. Because I don't believe that's similar enough to our experience we want to provide. Here's a great example, and I think you could relate to this. You have a favorite restaurant, I'm sure, where you live, right? Mm-hmm. And you and your wife, you and your family would go out there, whatever. And when you went there for the experience. You went there for the wine, the sommelier, whatever, right? The food. And the food was a big piece of it, but it wasn't the only reason why you went. And when you went back to that restaurant, if you had half the amount of people, the servers were wearing a mask and gloves, and you were required to sit super far away from other people, and the environment was more stale, would you go back there, or would you just order out from there? And what you'd probably say is, dude, I would just order out, right? And so what I'm concerned about is that if we go too fast too soon, members might come in and have a poor experience, and then we may never get them back in. They'd rather just order out, which is our digital products. So I'd rather take our time, get as close to normal as we can, and then go out there and execute on it.
Well said there. I think we had the same conversations with our gyms when we were putting together the, let's call it Get Back to Play, the playbook. And we said you have to create a certainty of safety, but you can't be the gym that everybody needs to like wrap themselves in bubble wrap, to show up to the facility, because that doesn't actually create the feeling of security. That makes me think that I'm unsafe all the time. So when you're thinking about the industry, your gyms, let's walk out a year and say, how much consolidation do you think probably happens in the fitness industry? And broadly speaking, what does that look like? I mean, for example, do Peloton and Mirror merge? How do you see?
I think the digital space, you'll see consolidation. You'll see Peloton pick up some competitors. I imagine they're going to be in a great cash flow position. I think that big box gyms are going to consolidate tremendously. You got 24 that's on the ropes, about to go under because of a variety of different private equity deals or whatever they've done. You have Gold's Gym that just filed for bankruptcy, which that doesn't mean that Gold's Gym HQ might be still the licensees and stuff. I think this word bankruptcy, sometimes it has false impressions on it. Just because someone claims bankruptcy doesn't mean that they're gone, They just need whatever. So I think you'll see huge consolidation on the commercial gyms, the big box gym side. I think in the boutique fitness space, where it was highly predicated on max people in least amount of space, you're going to see some consolidation there as well, because they're probably not going to be able to pivot the model quick enough to accommodate half the amount of people. That includes like SoulCycle, unless they could get over to this online platform. If SoulCycle, I've taken SoulCycle classes, I don't know if you have. I mean, dude, literally my nose was like right next to the other woman in front of me's butt. Like, you're that close, right? But the model was built on that, and the energy was built on that. So now if you separate that out, I don't know what's going to happen, right? But I imagine at some point the model breaks down and they just can't open up any more brick and mortar. Yeah. And then I think in the CrossFit space, where it will actually help us is that traditionally the gyms were bigger than our competitors. So if you consider Orange Theory, F45 our competitors, the gyms were a little bit bigger because most people had barbells. But imagine if we got rid of the barbells, we maybe consolidated a smaller barbell, dumbbell base, whatever, and we're able to accommodate roughly the same. Like for me, most CrossFit gyms, accommodating class sizes was never really an issue necessarily, except for maybe in the morning or evening. So I think for the big box gym, like for the CrossFit gyms, I don't know if it's going to be as big of a concern as it was before. Now, that's not to say that any of those guys were crushing and making a bunch of money in the first place, right? But I don't think if you have 5,000 square feet with 150 members, this will affect you, right? Yep. It's the guys that have 3,000 square feet that had 300 members that were doing really well financially that they're going to have to figure out how to do that.
Which is one of the things that I always appreciated about CrossFit is if you could just wrap your head around the idea, hey, I'm not going to be the most profitable, but I'm going to have a really cool environment. I'm going to have a community that loves it. I'm going to be able to work with barbells, which I love. That can be a competitive advantage for that type of a model. You're not going to be the most profitable, but Orange Theory doesn't want to be CrossFit. You know what I mean? And so I think but people don't necessarily think about that at the local level as much as maybe you and I have thought about that. Okay, kind of a last segue here. How do you think your clients, be it digital or in person, how do you think their perception of fitness or training in person or online is going to change?
So let's talk about the CrossFit space, then I'll talk about NC Fit. Okay. CrossFit, in general, attracted a demographic that was, pretty type A, really was ready to go after it. I think those guys, like, for example, I also roll jiu-jitsu. I love jiu-jitsu. Most of the jiu-jitsu guys, they're ready to get back on the mat tomorrow. For me, I'm not prepared for that for a variety of reasons, including, for me, I have other things to think about. If I go roll jiu-jitsu, the chance, if someone has coronavirus and I'm rolling jiu-jitsu with them, the chance of me getting it are almost 100%, right? I mean, you're like breathing on top of each other. It's crazy. And I have, family and obligations here, especially with my daughter being post-leukemia, that I just can't take on that risk. So I think if you're like diehard CrossFit, diehard jiu-jitsu, diehard whatever, you're probably just going to get back in the gym, and it's because you're so dedicated. But for those people that were like, once or twice a weekers or kind of, the weekend warrior, whatever, they're probably going to take longer to get back in the gym because they weren't as die-hard built into that as a routine in the first place. So for us at NC Fit, we had more, kind of like these 3.5 times a weekers, really built up our audience. And so I think it's going to take a little time. I think we'll get 40% of our population will come back within soon. And then it's going to about another 30% probably a month later. And it's going to take us a while to attain the rest. And I think that potentially a lot of it is changed forever in terms of the way cleaning protocols and things like that. We had already kept really clean gyms, but I think a lot of that stuff's going to change forever. And I think CrossFit might change forever, by the way, too. I mean, CrossFit HQ, no affiliation fees are being charged right now. The games had totally changed the way they are doing. Seminars have stopped. I don't know what's going to happen with CrossFit HQ or their the affiliate model. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm super curious, more from a branding standpoint, and this is probably for another conversation, but how CrossFit will try to pivot into health, versus the traditional what it used to be. I think it's going to be really interesting, kind of post-COVID. How about online? What are you seeing in terms of actions, metrics? Like, are people very sticky online, or?
So, I mean, obviously they're not as sticky as we want, which is why we're doing things to keep them more sticky. We used to have an online app where people could just go on there and just like buy it on the App Store. We actually took that off because we wanted to have more traction on, engage with them, get on a phone call, get them on a private Facebook group, get them on, all these different campaigns we have to keep the engagement high, because otherwise, you're talking a couple months later and they're gone. And I think the secret for, at least for us, is understanding who our audience is and not trying to be everything to everybody. And I think for a lot of years, and this is maybe what I learned at brick and mortar, is we tried to be everything to everybody, meaning we offered yoga, we offered Pilates, we offered spin. There was a time we offered, 30-minute class, 45-minute class, 60-minute class, Olympic barbell, gymnastics, kids class. And what we learned was that we couldn't be everything to everybody. We need to hone in on what we're really good at, what we're passionate about, and go out there and scream at the highest level. And so online, it's creating a really great solid dumbbell program that has a strength and conditioning piece. It's not going to be for the person that wants to sweat for an hour. It's going to be the person who wants to get in a great strength session with dumbbells and then a great workout with dumbbells, 15 to 20 minutes, that I believe is highly effective. And there's a lot of people that believe in that. And I also learned that the follow along model for us needs to be there. So we're going to hit people with 3 choices: the workout of the day, the cliff notes, or the follow along. And that's how I think we're going to win. I think we're going to win because a guy like you will just look at the workout, have a great idea of what we want to do, right? Beautiful warm up, beautiful strength, beautiful condition. A guy, someone like your friend might be able to, watch the cliff notes and be like, okay, I get it. It's like a 2-minute video explaining it. Then someone like, my mom might have to follow along the whole time. And so those are the 3 that we're really going after.
Gotcha. Are you working to, at some point, talk to kids too? I just see what you've done with your son. Or is that just kind of fun for right now?
For right now, I mean, from a business model perspective, we're not really interested in pursuing it. It's just something that my son and I, we did our first ever PE class. We're going to do another one, I think, this week. And it's really a way for him and I to bond. We go fishing, we do stuff, but, I want to get him comfortable behind the camera. I want to get him comfortable with making a commitment and sticking with it, which is, hey, on Friday at this time, we're having this commitment. So there's a few more it's more of a dad-son thing, and life lessons than it is like trying to create a business model.
Yeah, I love it. Jason, man, I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on today. I know you're doing a lot of these podcasts, so I appreciate the energy.
No, this was a great conversation, man. I could talk business all day. I mean, as you could probably tell.
Yeah, this is what I like to do. So I'm just coming on and having good conversations, and whatever happens, happens.
Love it, man. Well, wishing you all the best and keep getting after it.
All right, thanks. You too.